If you look at the history of performance of the markets, and then you see this 120-year bubble created by 1980 high interest rates, people flooding to the market. And the reason, by the way, that they were flooding into the market because the top marginal tax rate in 1980 was 70%.
Whole life insurance has stood the test of time. It's been around since the 1800s. It only goes up.
Don't just look at numbers. Don't just listen to people give their opinions. Go do your own research.
Let's think about this. So 1980 is when the 401k started.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you're how old? 43?
I'm 43.
Okay. So you're 43 years old. Let's say 1980, you're 18 years old. You're entering the workforce.
Oh, it's huge.
So you're like, oh, I should get a 401k. So if that's the case, people are just now seeing what a 401k does throughout, a lifetime of paying into it, right?
Sure.
So there's no real proof that a 401k works. Actually,
it's a failing financial experiment.
It's proof that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like my dad had a 401k and he is so terrified to retire because he's lost so much money in it. And again, if you lose 50%, you have to earn 100% just to get back to square one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he's got, I think, like $230,000 life savings. He's 67 years old. He can't go spend another 20, 30 years building it back up.
It's a good thing he's got you.
This is true. I started a policy on him, and I'm giving him the cash value, so it's like his retirement.
Yeah.
But think about that, guys. A 401k started in 1980. If you were 18 years old when that started, 43 years later, you're how old?
61. Like
that's retirement, right?
Yeah.
59 and a half is when you can do it with no.
So, sure.
So, and right now, 401ks are down a lot.
Down.
However, whole life insurance has stood the test of time. It's been around since the 1800s. It only goes up. So I touched on those numbers with my daughter's policy.
Yeah.
When she's like 60, 70 years old, puts in $6,000, it grows by like 90.
Totally.
So think about that. She puts in 6, let's say it grows by 90. She can take 90 as a policy loan. There's no taxes on loans.
Yep. Take
6 of it, pay the next year's premium. She keeps $84,000 of tax-free income.
It's amazing.
It has stood the test of time.
And it's predictable, right?
Yes.
And that's the key. And so I just encourage everybody to think about and really ask why. Don't just look at numbers. Don't just listen to people, give their opinions, including me, including Devin.
Right.
Go do your own research.
Right.
Really break down the actual returns of the markets. Really look at different time frames because you have to do research, because it's easy to look at those. If you look at the history of performance of the markets and then you see this 120-year bubble, and that's what it is. It was a bubble created by 1980 high interest rates, people flooding to the market. And the reason, by the way, that they were flooding into the market because the top marginal tax rate in 1980 was 70%, right? So if you had the ability to defer taxes in 1980 at 70% and pay when it's 35 or 40%, you're winning. You're winning. But I don't know about you. I try to tell people, I don't think there's any good or bad investment. Is it good or bad for you? And is it in alignment with your values and your beliefs? And the problem that we have with most people in America is that their money is not in alignment with what they truly value and what they truly believe. And that, for me, is what my passion point is for helping people, is to help people align their money with their values and beliefs. And if I were to ask most people, you do this, I do this all the time, and say, what do you believe about politics? What do you believe about the economy? What do you believe about inflation and the national debt and unfunded liabilities and all the direction things are going? People are freaking the hell out because they have no faith in it. But if you talk to most people and you say, all right, you have no faith in the government, you have no faith in the future, you don't think national debt is going to go down, you're worried about taxes going up, right? All these things. Where's all your money saved for retirement? Qualified account, IRA, 401k, something of that nature.
Right.
And it's no wonder you're failing with your money because you don't even know what to do with your money to align it with your values and beliefs. And I'm not being critical to the people doing that because
it's just
the system is goading you into doing something to keep you plugged in and a slave to the system.
Right.
That's the reality.
Right.
But if you want a different result, you have to be willing to do things differently, and you have to be willing to become somebody who's worthy, you know, this of living the life that you want to live. That's I always tell, like, my favorite thing about what we do is coaching people through a process of being like, you are where you are in life because of who you are in life. And what I love about utilizing whole life insurance as a foundational asset is it's going to force you to become somebody different so you can actually create the life that you want to live.
Yes. We had a podcast 2 days ago with Dan Clark. Do you know Dan?
No.
Awesome dude. He's such a good dude.
I love it.
He's like international speaker. He's professional speaker, Hall of Fame. So
cool.
Dude
so
is just a
legit
stud at speaking on stage.
Love it.
And we talked about the fact that everyone has the ability to become more valuable. Most people just don't do it. Like, where do you spend your time? That's the main thing.
Amazon Prime and Netflix, baby.
Think about that. That's what most people do. Or video games, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You can spend your time doing one of two things. Entertaining yourself. That's one thing you can do. So that would be Netflix and chill. That would be your video games. That would be anything to entertain yourself to pass the time.
Sure.
Or educate yourself.
Yep.
And most people choose the first option. They want to entertain themselves. They don't want to educate themselves. But if they educate themselves, they become more valuable and they become more worthy and deserve a better life. Right?
Yep.
That's what we talked about. It was 2 days ago. Gosh. I'm
That's
like
awesome.
losing track of days because of the baby.
Bro, get used to it. You've been there, done that. It's another 6 months of that from my experience. So I read this statistic the other day. You know, the average Netflix subscriber, how many hours a week the average Netflix subscriber spends on platform watching?
Per week. Oh, let me
get ready
guess
for
here.
this.
I'm gonna say at least 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, so 42 hours.
That's high. So that's high. But like I'm sure there are plenty of people doing that. This is, by the way, this is average.
Okay.
So including all the people
that
like me that subscribe that maybe watch an hour a week. Right? So average 18 hours a week. Jesus. Including the millions of people that probably subscribe and don't watch that much. 18 hours a week for average. So let's just assume that's 18 hours a week. What would your life look like? What would everybody's life look like if they were to take half of that time?
9 hours a week.
9 hours a week and commit to learning something, commit to developing themselves, commit to growing as a human being, commit to figuring out, all right, what are my unique passions, my unique abilities, my unique interests, and how could I evolve and grow and expand and figure out a way to add value and contribute to the world in a better way and actually create myself as an asset, you know? It's just one of those things where if everybody did that, well, I'll say it this way. Everybody has the ability to do that. So when people, and I get pretty opinionated and I can get kind of abrasive to people in comments and whatever, because it really drives me crazy when people are like, oh, you just don't get it. You've already got it figured out. You know, this and that. It's like, there's no excuse. I don't care how much money you're making or not making. I don't care. To me, everybody has the ability to create the life that you want to live. And if you don't have what you want, it's your own fault.
Right.
It's your own fault. You have the ability to be more intentional about how you're living your life. That's my company, Life 180, is an acronym, living intentionally for excellence. That's what the life is. It's an acronym. That's why I always capitalize it. Drives me nuts when people write it lowercase.
Like, no,
you know, no, this is what but, you know, and so like, but we have to be more intentional with how we spend our time. You and me have the same amount of time in the day that Elon Musk has.
Right.
We are losers compared to that guy.
Yeah, because he's more efficient with his time.
He's a monster, right? Like, and granted, I wouldn't want to live his life.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't want, like, I value my family and time, and, you know, there's all sorts of stuff out there. I want the freedom.
He's an alien, though.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, but you and I, like, so for me, all this stuff that we're doing, my wife and I are moving to the Dominican Republic. You know, we're going to be spending a lot of our time down there. I'll be traveling back and forth. We'll be traveling back and forth, but that's going to be kind of home base. You know, we're not selling our home here in Arizona, but we are going to be spending a bulk of our time down there. We're running a hotel and we're doing all this stuff. But
are you selling the Jeep?
And I am.
I can't believe that,
bro.
This guy is the biggest Jeep fan of all time. You're selling the Jeep?
Yeah, I just listed it yesterday.
Oh wow!
I had a ceremony. It was a sad day. It was a sad day. I listed it. Yeah, it's I'm bringing it in tomorrow, getting it fixed up, And it sucks. I'm like replacing all these things that I've beat up on the trail and getting it fixed up. And it's going to be anybody in the Jeep market. If it's still available, it probably won't be available by the time this comes out. But yeah, it's a sad day. But what I did was on the day before I went to list it, I went and I test drove. Well, I'll tell you why. So I was going to try to import my Jeep to the Dominican Republic.
That's what I would have thought you would have done.
They won't let me because it's 1 year too old.
Really?
Yeah, they'll only let me import a vehicle as old as 2018. I swore to myself I'd never sell my Jeep, but I'm not going to let it sit, for a year, not getting driven at all, and all these things.
I can drive it for you.
Yeah, I know, right? But
I'll get some use out of it.
So we're gonna just sell it. And the day before, just to make myself feel better, I went and test drove Jeeps all day long. Like we just test drove like 12 Jeeps. It was crazy. Just so I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure out. And then I'm going to buy a new one, and in like 6 months, I'm going to import it, and we'll get it down to the DR.
That's good. My daughter was looking at Jeeps. She's 16.
Yeah.
So we took her to look at new cars, and she's buying a car from her policy. She has 3 policies.
Yep.
So she's going to have a job. Mm-hmm. She's going to make the payment on the car note back to her policy.
Yeah.
So she gets all the money back for the car.
Mm-hmm.
She sees how the banking system works.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'll assign those policies to her.
Sure.
Setting her up for huge success in life.
It's amazing.
But she was looking at Jeeps, and I'm like, all right, so here's what you got to think about, baby. Not great on gas, right? Not great.
They hold their value.
They hold their value, but not great on gas.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you put 35-inch wheels on them or tires, and
you have to, because that's when they look dope.
All that stuff.
So not great on gas.
I get 10.5 miles a gallon on my Jeep, by the way.
It's horrible.
It's really not good.
For a kid that's going to be working part-time.
It cost me $30 to drive here from my house.
That's true. I'm just but like, think about this. Her first car, she's going to have a job part-time. Let's say her payment, it would have been like a $35,000, $40,000 first car.
Yeah.
So her payment back to herself is probably going to be like $500 a month.
That's a big payment.
If you're working part-time and making, let's say, $900 to $1,000.
Half your income.
Then you've got a lot of gas. You've got insurance. You've got, you want to get your nails done. You want to get your hair did, right? All these things. I had to like talk her out of it. I'm like, no, baby, you need to like be smarter with your money. It is your money. You're paying the payment.
You do your thing. Yeah.
You're getting the money back. But if you have like a $300 payment with a car that gets way better gas mileage, so your gas bill is a lot less, like I've been trying to instill in her all the things that weren't instilled in me growing up, and I made so many mistakes with money because my parents knew nothing about it.
Totally, absolutely.
So this little girl is going to be dangerous, I'm telling you. By the time she's like 30 years old, she might be running the world.
Hey, that's what we need.
Who knows?
That's what we need, though. Yeah, man. I mean, it like all that stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, though, whether she got the Jeep or went a cheaper route or whatever, at least she's doing it through her policy.
Yeah.
It's going to reduce her cost of money on that. She's going to recapitalize her system. She's going to keep that money in her own financial ecosystem. From a cash flow perspective, if she does make a mistake and take on the too big of a payment, she's going to have a little more flexibility. It's not going to bang up her credit. It's not going to do like all these things. Now, you do want to handle the loan and manage it. Like, and I mean, I'm sure,
Oh, I'm making her
You know what? Dad's going to bail her out a couple times. That's what's going to happen.
I'm making her sign a contract.
Yeah.
So she misses a payment, I take the car. Right?
Sure.
But why would you miss a payment on something that's going back to an account that you have access to again?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense not to.
Right. Make the payment. Because if it's a $500 payment, you make that payment, it goes into her policy. She didn't lose control of that $500. It's just in her policy now.
Sure.
It's not sitting in her bank
you're
account.
recapitalizing your own account.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, I don't know, man. It's crazy to think I have a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm. I have a 12-year-old now.
Dude, just
4 years from now. I know.
It's crazy because
it goes.
When she was 12, she was like this little daddy's girl, like so innocent, like hanging onto my hip, like everywhere I went. She's 16 now. She's like, wants nothing to do with dad.
Be gone, Dad.
She's like talking to boys now. She's got this little boyfriend.
Oh, God.
Named Sammy.
Oh, God.
And
No, don't talk like that.
Dude, I try to
No,
I try to instill fear into him.
I don't want to hear it.
Every time I see him, I like shake his hand and almost try to break it.
Yeah.
And just look through his soul.
But he's like 6'5", 220. No.
He's actually like 6'1".
Yeah.
I'm 5'7", but she says that all of her like friends that are guys are scared of me because I'm like shorter, but I'm built.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
know people.
And I have a gun tucked every time. I have a gun tucked every time I meet him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well,
You're like, you got pecs, I got techs.
Dude, we could go for hours.
We could.
We've already been going for like an hour and a half.
All right.
So
that's awesome.
How can people follow you?
YouTube at Life 180. On Instagram and TikTok, it's at Real Chris Kirkpatrick. Anybody that wants to reach out for anything.
The real Chris Kirkpatrick.
The real Chris Kirkpatrick.
Not the NSYNC one.
Not this NSYNC phony guy.
Yeah.
No, you know what's really funny about that, though? My wife was Mrs. American in 2021, the married version of, like, the pageant beauty queen thing.
Did you tell her to quit playing games with your heart?
Yeah. That's low. That's low, bro. That's low. So, oh, wow. He's got jokes.
Did you tell her there was no strings attached?
Oh, come on, man. So listen to this, though. She goes up, not even kidding you. She went up to Vegas for this charity event, right? And she sends me, and I had to stay home with the kids. And I'm usually like, we have this history. I was a pro poker player, so I would always go to Vegas to play poker tournaments, and she'd stay home with the kids. And so she went up to Vegas for this charity event as Mrs. American, and I stayed home with the kids. She sends me a selfie with her and Chris Kirkpatrick.
Oh, did you tell her bye?
And she you're horrible, bro. So she literally sends me a text message with the picture with the caption, I'm with the real Chris Kirkpatrick today. Oh yeah. I'm like, babe, that just cuts way too low. so
deep. Cuts deep.
So yeah, but that's where you find me on social media, is there. And yeah, I mean, most of my stuff is on YouTube. I enjoy the long form content because I like to focus on the meat and the education of it all. I'm a bit more of a nerd about this stuff than most people. I'm not nearly as suave.
In a good way.
And yeah, I'm not the suave, full of swag guy that Devin is here. He's way cooler than I am.
So I think.
You are. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You have a way higher cool factor than I have. But
don't
it's awesome.
Don't knock yourself down a notch.
But it's awesome. Hey, man, I get to move to an island and nobody else does.
This is true. I'm actually jealous.
You get to come with me.
I will be visiting.
We'll be doing down there in my new studio.
Yeah, you guys got to stay tuned for that because it's going to be in a studio. The backdrop is like the jungle and the ocean.
It's amazing.
And he's going to be having like ayahuasca retreats.
Yep. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be doing healing, breath workshops, yoga retreats, ayahuasca retreats, other traditional plant medicine retreats, doing all sorts of things down there. So stay tuned. It's going to be amazing.
We've got a couple minutes. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Ayahuasca. So
this is the encore.
Yes.
This is the encore. It's like the concert. We get called back out on stage.
So
all right, here we go.
Let's talk about ayahuasca because I hear it so often. I've never done it.
Yep.
I hear so much about it.
Yep.
What's your take?
How much time do we have? So my take on ayahuasca is that it's I'm shocked how many people don't even know what it is. And my opinion on, I guess let me say it this way. My history, I've never done a drug. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never smoked marijuana.
No sticky icky?
Nothing, bro.
Wow.
I never did.
Dude, I was Snoop Dogg in high school.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I've literally never touched a joint or a pipe or anything to my lips. Never taken a drag off a cigarette. I'll have a margarita every now and then. That's like my vice, right? I was a really high level athlete growing up, and so to me, like all that was just gonna destroy my life, and it was just, it wasn't worth it. And so my whole opinion on psychedelics, my opinion was like LSD and mushrooms, and it was like, who does that? And I knew some people that did it, but they did it very recreationally, and they were kind of idiots, Yeah. And so my perspective, like I had no respect for any of that. And then, we hit some personal stuff in life, and it happened. And, I went through some coaching, and the idea of ayahuasca was brought up to me, and my initial
when was this?
This was 12 months ago. Not even
recent. Okay.
Yeah, maybe 10 months ago, and it was brought to my attention. And of course, I've been watching Joe Rogan, and I've been watching Aubrey Marcus, and I've been seeing these other people that are talking about ayahuasca, and Ron White. I don't know if you know Ron White, the comedian, the guy who says you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
That, like the blue collar comedy guy.
Right?
Older guy's
Yeah.
always got a drink and a bourbon in his hand and a cigar in his hand.
Yeah.
He's like a raging alcoholic. and he'd been battling alcoholism. I watched his interview where he's like, for years, decades, he's been trying to get sober. He could never break through. With counseling, inpatient rehab, he'd always get out and he'd get back on the sauce, you know? And he did this one interview about how he went and did a week of ayahuasca, and he's been sober ever since.
Really?
Yep. And I was like, wow, that's intense, you know? And so what would it look like in my life? And I don't care who you are. Everybody's got traumas. Everybody's got self-limiting beliefs. Everybody's got our deep down in our subconscious, the things that hold us back from becoming who we want to be.
Right.
And, you know, I just realized I was in a spot where I loved my life. And from the outside looking in, I think most people would, you know, kind of look at it as almost perfect. But it was not perfect. And I had an opportunity to go down, and my wife and I went to Colombia, and we did a week-long ayahuasca retreat, and it was world-changing. It allowed me to break through the walls that I had in my subconscious, where I remember getting there, and I'd never done any kind of mind-altering substance in my life. And
so was there a lot of anxiety behind that, like right before?
No, because I just felt called to it, you know?
Got it.
And I wasn't doing it recreationally. I was doing it. I went to a place in the Amazon. We had a Taita who's literally like 4th generation shaman, basically.
So they're kind of coaching you through the experience.
There was 20 people there. We did an integration circle ahead of time. Everybody talked about it and talked about what we were doing there, what we were there for. And my mindset was like, I didn't even know what I was there for. I just felt called to it. And my intention was just like, I just want to open up. Like, help me reach places of myself that I've never been, that I've never seen, you know, that I've never been able to open up and get to the depths of what's holding me back. You know, why am I where I am, and why am I not where I want to be yet? You know, that kind of deal. And it opened up things that I didn't want to see. It opened up things that were hard emotionally to battle with. And I would say that my first 3 journeys on ayahuasca were the hardest 3 days of my life. It was to the point where it was almost hard to go back for a 4th day. But through coaching and ceremony and integration work and all the things that we got to go through, I went back in, and thank God I did, because it was then 2 of the most amazing days back to back. And, you know, it was almost like I had to be broken down to be built up. And so we did that. My wife did it. She had her own experience that I won't get into. It was awesome. And we came home, and 5 weeks later, we were like, man, we don't feel finished with the medicine yet. And so we went back, and it was just phenomenal. And it's just given me so much more clarity about who I want to be, how I show up in the world, about how I view other people's opinions and perspectives of me and what I'm doing, and, you know, all that stuff. And just, I've never been more clear about what my purpose is on this earth. And it's all because of ayahuasca. It's all because of my time in ceremony and the work. I would say that it's not a magic pill. It doesn't just fix you, but it helps you see things in a way where you almost get to live it and experience it. Like, I'll say this, I died. I got to experience dying.
Was that was the first couple of days where it was like a rough?
Second day. I got to literally experience dying. Imagine yourself on your, you know how in the life insurance business, we always tell people, imagine yourself on your deathbed. You got all your family and friends around you, and like, how are you going to feel? What are you going to think? Imagine actually living it. I lived it.
Crazy.
I felt myself die, and I felt myself fight death and experience all the emotions of all the unfinished business that I have in my life right now, for my kids, for my wife, for my business partners, for the investment fund that we're building, for all the things that I want to accomplish over the next 30 years that left unfinished. I literally got to feel what would it be like if I died right now? And I went through that whole experience in conversations with my kids and my partners and my wife, and fighting, not being willing to die. And then the more you fight it, the more pain comes in.
Crazy.
And then it gets so painful that you finally just have to give up and succumb. and you allow yourself to die on the medicine. And I remember when I first got there, the guy who was the lead facilitator, his name is Jared, and he goes, guys, and there was only one person out of the 20 that had ever done ayahuasca before. And Jared said, guys, you are 100% safe. Nobody's ever died on ayahuasca. It's going to take you places, but it's to the point where even if you feel like you're going to die, let yourself die. You can't die. The only way out is through. And I remember listening to him being like, this guy's crazy. Yeah. This guy's got to be, he's nuts. There's no way. There's no way that's going to happen to me. Day 2, I remember being there, and you're in and out of kind of that conscious where I'm like, okay, I'm on the medicine and whatever, and like allow yourself to die. And then you start being like, all right, I'm going to succumb to it. I'm going to do it. And then you start doing it, and then you're like, wait a minute, what if this is real?
What if I'm actually
Because
dying?
it feels so real.
Yeah.
Right? What if I'm actually dying? This is it.
I don't want to die.
I'm not ready for this.
Right.
You know? And so you fight it and you battle and you have these conversations, and they're real as real gets. And you finally do it, and you finally give up. And as soon as I died, I literally felt myself melt into the floor. It was like disintegrate into dust. And I woke up immediately, and I was completely lucid immediately. Like back, I mean, still a little on it, but like mentally fully aware. It was the most powerful experience of my life. And that was 1 out of 10 journeys I've done this year. Just to give you an idea.
Jeez, like now I feel like I need to do it because
yeah, man,
the
insane.
power of the mind is absolutely insane. Most people can't fathom how powerful this thing is.
Totally.
Because we can't, what's the whole stat? We only tap into like 10% of our brain.
Sure.
So these substances, these things, ayahuasca, shrooms, whatever, it helps you tap into different parts of your brain.
Yeah.
Like what's possible?
Yeah.
Like what is really possible? And I talked about this with Dan a couple of days ago. My biggest motivating factor, the person that motivates me the most is me.
Yeah.
40, 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Like when I pass away, whenever that is, meeting that man, did I live up to who I could have been?
Totally.
Or did I fall short?
Yeah.
So if I could have that experience of like dying today and knowing I am nowhere near that man yet,
it's insane.
that would make me, as soon as I'm lucid, be like, okay,
Whoa.
I got some work I got to do.
Well, I'll tell you this, people that know me really well, like Caleb Williams, you know, he's like a brother, right? And, you know, I've talked to him pretty intimately about this, you know, off the record and stuff, you know, and, you know, he comes to me, he's like, dude, you're like a different person now. Like, and he's like, I could see it in your eyes. Like you have this conviction, you know, and and I have more clarity now. I've never been more certain of everything we're doing, of the business and the agency we're building, of the investment fund and the assets that we're building and the cash flow creation and the freedom creation and, you know, the value that I'm trying to add to the world. And like, and it's so different than what most people do, but it's so clear to me. And I have like, everything is very orderly. And before it was scary to me. And now it's just like another step in the process.
This is what I do.
It's just another step in the process.
Guys, listening to this, please don't just go do a bunch of drugs.
Yes, please. That is, and I'll say this, I still don't look at it as if I've done a drug, right? To me, it was a medicine.
Got it.
Done in a ceremony.
Controlled environment.
Not just a controlled environment, a ceremony with a professional Taita shaman who is designed with a professional Taita, not one of these dumb neo shamans that, you know, like would be like me going down, you know, for 10 days and being like, oh, I love ayahuasca. I'm going to get certified to be a shaman. Like, don't do that crap, right? Go work with somebody who's like heritage. The shaman that I worked with grew up in the jungle. Like,
share the information with me, and I'll put it in the description if anyone wants to do it. Because, guys, I've been considering it for a while, just because I've heard stories like this, but in no way, shape, or form am I saying or is he saying just go start doing a bunch of drugs.
Please don't.
Right? Because I've seen drugs really take a hold of my family. My brother got hooked on meth.
Oh, gosh.
Bad when I was a kid. I got hooked on cocaine.
Nobody's ever going to get hooked on ayahuasca. I promise you that. Like, that I can guarantee. There's like, but here's the deal. I'm going to also throw another disclaimer out there. Don't do ayahuasca unless you're really 100% committed to dealing with your stuff, because you're going to see things that you didn't even know existed. You're going to have to deal with problems that you didn't even know existed. And so be ready to do the work, because otherwise it's like, it's that 4 levels of consciousness is unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, and then consciously competent, and then unconsciously competent. And it's like everybody right now is unconsciously incompetent for the most part, right? You don't know the problems. You don't realize all the things going on inside in your subconscious. As soon as you go here and you do this, you're gonna have things that are churned up that you don't even know exist right now. So if you're not willing and able and have the capacity in life to deal with it, don't do it yet.
Love it.
Because it's gonna come hard and there's no stopping it.
Love it. Well, guys, in the description, we'll have where you can get a hold of whoever he got a hold of for the whole experience. So I will put that in here. Make sure to follow Chris on Life 180. It's his YouTube channel. You can learn so much from his videos. I learned a ton when I started learning about infinite banking. So check that out. And if you guys want to see him back on so we can talk more about the ayahuasca stuff and all that, drop in the comments that you want to see him back on. We'll get him back on the show. Until then, guys, I love you.